Hello everyone, welcome back to Shadow Whisper. Tonight we bring you 6 truly unsettling real trucker horror stories that will make you rethink what actually happens on America's most deserted highways once night falls. These are not made-up tales, but genuine experiences shared by veteran drivers who have spent years traveling the loneliest stretches of interstate, where civilization fades away and something far darker begins to take shape. Each story has been thoroughly investigated and supported by witness statements, police documents, and verified reports from within the trucking community itself. America's open roads hide secrets that most travelers will never come across. And maybe that's for the best. From calculated traps set to exploit unsuspecting truckers, to eerie encounters that seem beyond human understanding. Tonight, we dive deep into the unseen dangers waiting beyond the glow of the headlights. If you appreciate real horror stories that reveal the truth behind what most prefer to ignore, make sure to subscribe to Shadow Whisper and turn on notifications so you never miss our next descent into the dark side of America's highways. I've run Channel 19 for 20 years, long enough to know every accent between Laredo and Fargo. Every kind of late-night boredom that makes a driver talk to static. Most nights it's background hum. Guys swapping weather reports, old jokes, mile markers. Harmless noise to fill the space between white lines. But 2 months ago, the noise started talking back. It was somewhere past Wichita, 2:14 a.m. by the dash clock. I was running eastbound, reefer loaded with frozen chicken, heater blowing warm enough to fog the side glass. Coffee old enough to file taxes sat in the cup holder. The CB cracked once, short, sharp, and then a voice slid through that I knew too well. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? My own voice. Same rasp, same lazy drawl I'd picked up from too many Kansas diners. I froze, mic halfway up. The transmission repeated. Same words, same inflection. Like an echo that hadn't learned which side of time it belonged on. I thumbed the button. Who's running a playback out here? Nothing. Just the low hiss that sounds like the wind practicing speech. Procedural brain kicked in. I checked the squelch, flipped channels, reset the gain, ran a glance over the power cable. Everything read clean. No bleed over, no ghosting. Still a minute later. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? Exactly the same. There's a certain kind of quiet that follows you when you realize the equipment isn't broken. It's listening. I pulled into a rest area 5 miles up, the kind with a single sodium light buzzing over 2 vending machines and a state map that hadn't been updated since flip phones. Engine idled down to a heartbeat. I logged off duty, killed the dome, and let the dark fold itself around the cab. The air smelled like diesel and frost. The heater ticked. Somewhere in the static came a third transmission, this time with an extra line. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? Accident ahead at mile 243. I sat up so fast the seat groaned. Mile 243 was 40 minutes east. No alerts on the radio, no dot notices on the screen. I keyed the mic. Copy that, who's calling? No reply, just my own breathing looped back a half-second late. The road teaches superstition faster than any church. I started the engine, figuring maybe some joker was rebroadcasting old chatter. Still, I found myself easing down the highway a little slower, eyes scanning for brake lights. At mile 243 there was nothing. No wreck, no flares, just wind dragging paper trash across the shoulder. But as I passed the marker, the CB clicked once more. Eastbound unit, keep right. They don't see you. My hand locked on the wheel. The voice again mine, but with words I'd never said. The kind of tone you use when you're warning someone you still hope can hear. I told myself it was fatigue. 10-hour shift, cold air, caffeine pretending to be courage. I pulled into the next truck stop. Old concrete pads. Dog barking somewhere behind the dumpsters, and parked under a light so yellow it made color look like a rumor. Procedure. Engine off, logbook updated, mirrors checked. Everything standard, everything safe. Except the CB speaker kept breathing like someone too close to the mic. I leaned in. Static rose and fell, then sharpened into a sound like tape rewinding. "Tom Reeves," the voice said. My name. That took the temperature out of the cab. I'd never said my name on the air, ever. I unplugged the unit. Hiss cut out, silence rushed in. I waited, counted to 20. The heater clicked back on like it had been waiting its turn to spook me. I told myself to sleep. Instead, I sat upright till dawn, watching frost grow around the edges of the windshield in a pattern that looked a little too much like radio waves. At 7 a.m., daylight made everything smaller. I convinced myself the CB had picked up a recording, some freak cross-frequency with a repeater. I reconnected the cable and scanned the channels. Clean. Channel 19 was just truckers again, traffic updates, weather warnings. A guy advertising fuel discounts. By afternoon, I'd almost laughed it off. Then my phone pinged with a message from dispatch. Delays ahead. Accident eastbound I-40 mile 243. 2 fatalities. Keep right lane clear. I reread it twice, the taste of copper building behind my teeth. The crash hadn't existed when I'd passed the mile marker, and yet the voice, my voice, had called it in first. Rule. When the radio speaks in words you haven't said yet, don't answer. Let the future find someone else to warn. Button. Out here, the air remembers conversations we haven't had. I told myself I'd imagined it. Drivers do. 10 hours on the white line and the brain starts building company out of noise. By the time I fueled in Oklahoma City, daylight had turned the whole thing into a story I could almost laugh at. That night erased the laughter. I rolled out after sunset, temperature just above freezing, sky scraped clean. Channel 19 was its usual mix of weather talk and boredom. I let it hum while the miles stacked. Then around midnight, a voice cut through like a nail through cloth. Eastbound unit, slow to 40, tire failure ahead. My own voice again. Calm clipped, exactly the tone I use when something's gone wrong. I reached for the mic, stopped halfway, and glanced at the dash clock. 12:07 a.m. 30 seconds later, the taillights ahead of me flared red. A driver in a tanker drifted onto the shoulder, right rear tire flapping itself to ribbons. I eased by, pulse hammering. When the CB hissed again, I yanked the plug. Logic fought superstition in the cab. Maybe somebody had sampled a clip of me from an old broadcast. Maybe there was a repeater glitch. I needed proof before I started telling ghost stories. At the next rest area, I parked under the only working lamp, powered the CB from a backup inverter, and set my phone to record the speaker. Procedure, not paranoia. The static hissed for 15 minutes straight. Then faintly, breaker 19 eastbound I-40. Watch the fog near mile 261. I checked the mile counter. 40 to go. Outside, the air was clean, moonlight sharp enough to read a bill of lading by. I left the recorder running and pulled back onto the highway. Half an hour later, the fog arrived, one of those sudden riverbank walls that eats the beams off your truck. Visibility dropped to nothing. I slowed to 35, flashers on, heart somewhere between throat and teeth. Through the gray came the orange blink of hazard lights, a sedan sideways across both lanes. I braked hard, trailer fishtailing before catching grip. No injuries, just an empty car, engine cold. The phone kept recording. At 3 a.m. I stopped again, hands shaking from the leftover adrenaline. The audio file sat on the screen. Timestamp 12:44 a.m. A full hour before I'd entered the fog. I sent the clip to a buddy in dispatch, Ray Holcomb. He's been running routes and radios since the 90s. We talked while I idled under the buzzing light. "Ray, you hearing me clear?" "Clear as Sunday," he said. I played the file over the line. Silence stretched long enough for me to count the heater clicks. "That's you," he said finally. "That's your drawl, your mic pop." "Yeah, and the timestamp?" "Matches the GPS ping from my end." "But Tom, you were on silent mode then. No transmissions logged. Meaning? Meaning your radio wasn't keyed. No outgoing signal at all." I didn't like the sound of that. Could someone spoof my channel? Maybe, but they'd need your unit ID and this. He paused. It sounds too clean. No bleed, no distortion. I saved the file anyway. Proof doesn't have to make sense to be real. By dawn, I was parked at a way station outside Little Rock. I asked the officer if I could check their frequency logs. He gave me that tired look cops say for drivers who haven't slept right. We log CB chatter, he said. Not unless someone threatens a building. Why? Because I'm getting transmissions from myself. He blinked once, the way people do before they decide whether you're joking. Maybe your rig's haunted, driver. He smiled without humor. I played the clip for him anyway. He frowned halfway through. That ain't a rebroadcast. No carrier tone. You sure that's you? I nodded. He shrugged, wrote something on his clipboard like he needed a line to put between us and the conversation, and said, "Keep the rubber down." That night I parked early at a Loves Off I-55, did the routine, logbook, fuel receipts, CB disconnected. Still, the speaker clicked once, powerless, like it wanted to remind me it didn't need electricity. I sat there listening to the hum of other engines through the lot, wondering what version of me was still out there on Channel 19, warning the next driver about things that hadn't happened yet. The phone buzzed with a new text from Ray. Playback just aired again on open frequency, 12:07 a.m., same voice. Same line, 12:07, the exact time the tanker lost its tire. I stared at the dark CB, unplugged but breathing faint heat through the vent, like it had just finished talking. Rule: if the road starts using your own voice to warn you, it's not predicting danger, it's rehearsing it. Button: some echoes don't wait for walls. They build their own frequency and call you by name. I've run Channel 19 for 20 years, long enough to know every accent between Laredo and Fargo. Every kind of late-night boredom that makes a driver talk to static. Most nights it's background hum. Guys swapping weather reports, old jokes, mile markers. Harmless noise to fill the space between white lines. But 2 months ago, the noise started talking back. It was somewhere past Wichita, 2:14 a.m. by the dash clock. I was running eastbound, reefer loaded with frozen chicken, heater blowing warm enough to fog the side glass. Coffee old enough to file taxes sat in the cup holder. The CB cracked once, short, sharp, and then a voice slid through that I knew too well. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? My own voice. Same rasp, same lazy drawl I'd picked up from too many Kansas diners. I froze, mic halfway up. The transmission repeated. Same words, same inflection. Like an echo that hadn't learned which side of time it belonged on. I thumbed the button. Who's running a playback out here? Nothing. Just the low hiss that sounds like the wind practicing speech. Procedural brain kicked in. I checked the squelch, flipped channels, reset the gain, ran a glance over the power cable. Everything read clean. No bleed over, no ghosting. Still a minute later. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? Exactly the same. There's a certain kind of quiet that follows you when you realize the equipment isn't broken. It's listening. I pulled into a rest area 5 miles up. The kind with a single sodium light buzzing over 2 vending machines and a state map that hadn't been updated since flip phones. Engine idled down to a heartbeat. I logged off duty, killed the dome, and let the dark fold itself around the cab. The air smelled like diesel and frost. The heater ticked. Somewhere in the static came a third transmission, this time with an extra line. Breaker 19, eastbound I-40, anyone copy? Accident ahead at mile 243. I sat up so fast the seat groaned. Mile 243 was 40 minutes east. No alerts on the radio, no dot notices on the screen. I keyed the mic. Copy that, who's calling? No reply, just my own breathing looped back a half-second late. The road teaches superstition faster than any church. I started the engine, figuring maybe some joker was rebroadcasting old chatter. Still, I found myself easing down the highway a little slower, eyes scanning for brake lights. At mile 243 there was nothing. No wreck, no flares, just wind dragging paper trash across the shoulder. But as I passed the marker, the CB clicked once more. Eastbound unit, keep right. They don't see you. My hand locked on the wheel. The voice again, mine, but with words I'd never said. The kind of tone you use when you're warning someone you still hope can hear. I told myself it was fatigue. 10-hour shift, cold air, caffeine pretending to be courage. I pulled into the next truck stop. Old concrete pads. Dog barking somewhere behind the dumpsters and parked under a light so yellow it made color look like a rumor. Procedure. Engine off, logbook updated, mirrors checked. Everything standard, everything safe. Except the CB speaker kept breathing like someone too close to the mic. I leaned in. Static rose and fell, then sharpened into a sound like tape rewinding. Tom Reeves, the voice said. My name. That took the temperature out of the cab. I'd never said my name on the air, ever. I unplugged the unit. Hiss cut out, silence rushed in. I waited, counted to 20. The heater clicked back on like it had been waiting its turn to spook me. I told myself to sleep. Instead, I sat upright till dawn, watching frost grow around the edges of the windshield in a pattern that looked a little too much like radio waves. At 7 a.m., daylight made everything smaller. I convinced myself the CB had picked up a recording, some freak cross-frequency with a repeater. I reconnected the cable and scanned the channels. Clean. Channel 19 was just truckers again, traffic updates, weather warnings. A guy advertising fuel discounts. By afternoon, I'd almost laughed it off. Then my phone pinged with a message from dispatch. Delays ahead. Accident eastbound I-40 mile 243. 2 fatalities. Keep right lane clear. I reread it twice, the taste of copper building behind my teeth. The crash hadn't existed when I'd passed the mile marker, and yet the voice, my voice, had called it in first. Rule. When the radio speaks in words you haven't said yet, don't answer. Let the future find someone else to warn. Button. Out here, the air remembers conversations we haven't had. There's a stretch of I-90 through South Dakota where the world starts repeating itself. Billboards, fields, even the color of the sky. It's the kind of drive that makes your thoughts circle the same track until they start sounding like CB chatter. I'd been running solo for 12 hours. Flat freight, light load. Dispatch said the route was clean. No detours, no construction. By midnight, it was just me. A ribbon of asphalt and an FM station fading in and out like someone flicking a switch every few miles. Then the GPS blinked. The blue line froze, flickered, and redrew itself. Next exit 47, I frowned. I'd run that corridor a dozen times. No exit 47. The numbers jumped from 45 straight to 49. I knew it the way you know your own speed by feel. But the green overhead sign appeared just ahead. Clean reflective letters catching the beams. Exit 47, Hollow Creek. No graffiti, no rust, even the bolts looked new. I told myself maybe DOT had opened a new access road, though there hadn't been funding for one in years. Curiosity is a dangerous fuel. I took it anyway. The ramp curved longer than it should have. Asphalt turned coarse. Shoulder markers ended and the night seemed to thicken around the truck. When my headlights leveled out, I saw a 2-lane road lined with streetlights that shouldn't have had power, each one glowing a faint, syrupy yellow. Hollow Creek, if it existed, was quiet. Too quiet. A single gas station stood at the corner, the kind built in the 70s. Flat roof, faded blue pumps, a Coca-Cola sign leaning sideways. The door light flickered as I pulled in. I could hear the whine of my turbo die into silence. No wind, no insects. Just the hiss of cooling metal. Procedure first, log entry, odometer, trailer brakes. All normal. I stepped down, boots touching asphalt that felt soft like rubber left in the sun. The smell hit me. Diesel, sure, but with something else under it. Damp soil and bleach like a janitor closet after rain. Inside the station, the air was warmer. Shelves stocked neat but dusty. Candy wrappers with logos I hadn't seen in 20 years. A rack of road maps, all of them printed by a company that went out of business in 2004. A bell dinged somewhere in the back, faint as a heartbeat. "Evenin'," a voice said. I turned. An old man stood behind the counter. Uniform crisp but wrong. Sleeves too short, cap too bright. The name patch read Larry, thread new, fabric ancient. "Need fuel," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Card pay okay?" He smiled without showing teeth. "Cash only. Machine's been down a while." I looked out through the smudged glass at my truck under the light. The LED clearance lamps blinked once even though I'd killed all power. Then out of the corner of my eye I saw another rig parked at the far pump. Same make, same paint, same company logo. Mine, I blinked. My truck sat where I'd left it, but the twin at the far pump was identical down to the mud flaps and license plate. I turned back toward the clerk. "Who's that?" He didn't look up from the register. "You were already here," my throat dried. "No, I just pulled in." He pressed the drawer shut with one slow hand. "Clock's wrong sometimes. Time loops here." I stepped outside. The air had turned thick like humidity after a storm, though the stars shone sharp above. The twin rig idled faintly, taillights breathing red across the lot. No driver in the seat. I took a slow walk toward it, flashlight in hand. My boots echoed wrong, like the sound was delayed by half a second. When I reached the door, I saw the company sticker on the glass. Same unit number, same small scratch under the mirror. The cab interior looked darker than it should have. Like a photograph exposed twice, I reached for the handle. The radio inside crackled to life. My voice quiet but clear. "Don't go past the bridge, Tom. It's not built for coming back." I jerked my hand away. The engine idled once more, then shut off by itself. The lot plunged into silence. I backed away, eyes fixed on the twin until it simply wasn't there. No noise, no smoke, just the yellow light buzzing over empty pavement. When I looked down at my watch, the minute hand had jumped 40 minutes ahead. Back in my own cab, the dash clock blinked 3:47 a.m., 3 hours later than it should have been. The GPS screen was blank white. Rule: when a new exit shows up on an old road, keep driving. Curiosity doesn't need a turn signal, it finds you on its own. Button: some towns don't get forgotten. They just stop waiting for permission to exist. Daylight has a way of rewriting everything you saw at night. I woke at a truck stop outside Chamberlain with a headache that felt earned. GPS signal was back. Logbook looked clean. For 10 minutes I convinced myself that Hollow Creek had been a dream that smelled like diesel. Still, the numbers wouldn't leave me alone. Exit 47. I ran the map app, zoomed between 45 and 49. Nothing but prairie. No local road, no creek. I called dispatch just to scratch the itch. "Morning, Tom, you deadheadin'?" "Yeah, listen, you ever seen an exit 47 on I-90? 47? Papers shuffled on her end. "That's not on the system." "You mean I-29? "No, 90. Silence then. Between 45 and 49's a 10-mile gap. Always has been." I thanked her and hung up, but curiosity is an infection. You think you're done, then it spreads again behind your ribs. By noon, the sky was rinsed clear blue, the kind of day where the horizon looks printed. I told myself I'd just drive past that stretch, prove it was gone, and laugh. But somewhere after mile 44, the sign rose up again. Bright green, perfect lettering. Exit 47, Hollow Creek. I slowed, heart already picking up the old rhythm. Sunlight made the paint shimmer new. "This time I'm filming," I said out loud. Phone on dash, camera rolling, I took the ramp. Asphalt looked fresh again. Yellow stripes sharp as tape. When I hit the intersection, the gas station stood right where memory had left it. Roof straight now, Coke sign clean, same blue pumps. Only this time, people. A boy on a bike pedaled past, head down. A woman in a sundress crossed the street holding groceries in paper bags. Every detail bright but wrong, like an old photograph that forgot to fade. I parked and let the engine idle. Camera kept recording. "Gonna ask for directions," I muttered, mostly to prove I could. Inside the station, the same man stood behind the counter. Larry, same uniform, same new thread patch. But the candy racks were full now. Neon colors that hadn't been printed since the 2000s. Back again, he said, smiling like he'd been expecting me. Was here last night, I said carefully. Did you see another truck like mine? He nodded toward the window. You're idling both of them again, I turned. 2 trucks, mine and its twin, sat nose to nose across the pumps, both engines humming, both clearance lights blinking in perfect sync. My breath shortened. What is this place? He shrugged. Depends what time you asked. The bell over the door rang and the sound stretched long like someone dragging a metal chair across tile. I looked back and the store was empty. No clerk, no shelves. Just walls mottled with mildew. My phone buzzed a text from dispatch. Delivery delayed. Weather closure near mile 47. I looked outside, sun blazing, air still. But the camera on the dash kept rolling and the feed showed storm clouds boiling over the lot that weren't there when I stepped out. I grabbed the phone. The timestamp said June 12th, 2009, not 2025. My pulse thundered. I sprinted to the truck. The other rig was gone. Only my tire marks remained, but they curved in a full circle like I'd driven around the pumps a dozen times. I threw the gear into drive, wheels kicking gravel. As I climbed the ramp, the mirrors caught movement. The gas station collapsing backward into shadow, its roof folding like paper. The GPS screen flashed, recalculating, and froze. For one sick heartbeat, every gauge on the dash dropped to 0. Then as the highway line appeared ahead, everything came back at once, speed, fuel, miles. Behind me, the exit sign was gone. Not broken, gone as if uninstalled. Mile 48 rolled past like nothing had happened. When I stopped at a way station 20 minutes later, I walked straight to the officer on duty. Question, I said. You ever hear of an exit 47 off I-90? He chuckled. You're about the 5th guy this year to ask that. No exit there, driver. Not since the bridge washout. Bridge? Yeah, 2009, flash flood took the whole ramp. 2 semis went with it. He looked at my license, then back at me. Funny thing, you're driving for the same company those boys ran. The clipboard shook slightly in his hands. Both drivers killed. Name of one was Larry Coates. I didn't say anything. Back in my cab, I scrolled through the phone gallery. The recording was still there, thumbnail frozen on the green highway sign. I hit play. The footage cut out at the moment I turned onto the ramp, screen filling with static shaped like rain, and through the noise, one faint voice. Mine. Don't go past the bridge, Tom. It's not built for coming back. For 3 days I told myself to forget it. I drove west with the radio low, hauled freight that didn't ask questions, and tried to let the miles bury what I'd seen. But the human mind doesn't bury things. It just files them under later. And later always comes at night. On the 4th evening, dispatch pinged me with a reroute. Take 90 east to Sioux Falls, mileage check at 49. That word, 49, made something deep in my chest shift. The route meant I'd be passing the same 10-mile stretch again. I should have refused. I didn't. Curiosity might kill cats, but it fuels drivers. The night air had that still metallic taste before rain. My wipers worked without needing to. Static whispered through the CB, though I hadn't touched the dial. The GPS arrow slid steady until the mile counter hit 46, then glitched. One flash of light ahead, green reflective letters, exit 47, Hollow Creek. Back like it had never left. No, I said out loud. Not again, but the steering wheel felt heavier, as if the truck had already decided. The turn signal clicked itself on. The ramp fell away steeper this time, leading into a fog that hadn't been there a second earlier. The yellow streetlights returned one by one like eyes opening. The gas station waited, dark, windows boarded now, one pump knocked over. I left the truck idling and stepped out. The ground felt soft like soaked paper. No sound except the hum of my diesel, fading in and out as if something were swallowing it. A sign near the curb caught my light. Hollow Creek Bridge, 0.5 miles, half a mile. The one thing I'd been told not to cross. The road bent toward the river, trees pressed close on both sides. My flashlight beam found the bridge. Concrete span cracked down the middle, guardrail missing chunks like bites, and standing on the near side, the old man from the station. Larry. No cap this time. Same uniform, torn and soaked to the elbows. "You came back," he said. I swallowed hard. "Who are you?" He tilted his head. A driver who didn't listen. Behind him, through the mist, I saw the outline of a semi-submerged nose first in the riverbed, its trailer half out of the water, company logo faint but visible. "My company." "You're the one from 2009, I whispered. He smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "We keep the road open for you folks. The ones who can't let things stay gone." My radio hissed in my pocket. Static burst once, then my own voice said, "Turn around, Tom, you can't stop here." I looked back, the cab lights flickered. The truck's engine note deepened like someone heavy had just climbed inside. When I turned forward again, Larry was gone. Only the bridge remained, fog curling over it like breath. I took one step closer. The air grew colder. On the asphalt before me, tire marks looped into a perfect circle. Fresh, wet, matching my tread pattern exactly. Proof I'd already been here. Something moved in the water below, a reflection that wasn't mine. It was my rig, sinking slow motion beneath the current. Clearance lights glowing under the surface like drowning stars. I stumbled back to the cab, slammed the door, and shoved the throttle. The wheels spun on nothing for a moment before catching. The ramp back to the highway was shorter than memory. When the trailer hit the main road, every gauge on the dash went black. No engine hum, no light, just a single line on the GPS. Recalculating route, return to exit 47. I killed the ignition and sat breathing hard. Outside, the night looked normal again. Dry road, clean sky, mile marker 48 up ahead. My watch read 3:17 a.m. The radio clicked. A new voice, older, steadier. "Breaker 19, anyone copy? This is Hollow Creek Station calling eastbound units. Road's clear now." I didn't answer. I threw the mic onto the passenger seat and kept rolling. At sunrise, I stopped at a DOT office and asked for historical records of the washout. The clerk, a woman in her 50s, flipped through a binder. "Bridge at Hollow Creek collapsed June 12, 2009, she said. 2 fatalities. Both drivers local carriers. She slid the report across the counter. One name jumped out, Larry Coates. The other, Thomas Reeves. My hands went cold. "That's impossible," I said. She looked up, puzzled. "What, this name?" "That's me," she smiled politely. "That report's 16 years old, sir." I left the building without taking the paper. Back in the cab, the dash cam notification blinked. File recovered, HC exit 47 MP4. The thumbnail showed the bridge under moonlight. I hit play. The footage lasted 5 seconds, just enough to see my own truck parked at the edge, hazards blinking, and a figure standing beside it. The timestamp read June 12, 2009, 3:17 a.m. That's the exact time my watch had shown. When a road that doesn't exist calls you by name, don't argue geography, argue survival. Some exits don't lead anywhere. They just remind you where you were never meant to leave. The thing about driving long haul is, the truck tells the truth even when you don't want to hear it. Your ELD, that little black box under the dash, logs everything. Engine hours, movement, braking, idle time. Dot can read your whole life off it like scripture, and mine had started writing things I didn't do. It began somewhere outside Amarillo, mid-September. Flat stretch, clear night. I'd stopped at a way station around 10:30 p.m., took my 30-minute break, and logged off duty. I remember it clear as diesel smell. The next morning, dispatch called. "Reeves, why were you rolling through Oklahoma at midnight?" "I wasn't," I said, still half asleep in the bunk. "Well, your ELD says otherwise. 52 miles between 12:07 and 1:10 a.m. Engine running, speed fluctuating. You sure you didn't move?" My stomach sank. Positive. He chuckled like it was paperwork. Then your truck went for a joyride. I'll reset the record. Just get it checked next stop. I hung up, but the air inside the cab felt heavier than it had the day before. Procedure. I ran diagnostics through the telematics tablet. No malfunctions, no unauthorized GPS ping. Still, the odometer showed 52 extra miles I couldn't account for. I scrolled the route history. The system had mapped a perfect line straight north to a rest area marked Red River Crossing. I'd never heard of it. That night I parked at a Loves Off I-40, left the engine idle, and watched the ELD screen glow blue in the dark. The hours rolled by clean until 12:00 a.m. Then, without my hand touching the keys, the log flipped to on duty, driving. The GPS line drew itself across the map, heading north again. My reflection in the screen looked like it was watching someone else's life. I grabbed my phone, took a photo for proof, then unplugged the ELD power cable. The screen should have died. It didn't. The glow dimmed but stayed alive, humming faintly like it had found another current to feed on. I left it alone. The road was too quiet, the kind of silence that only happens when the wind decides you shouldn't hear it move. When I woke at dawn, the ELD was blank, back to normal, except for one new entry. Location, Red River Crossing. Time 12:41 a.m., distance 0.0 miles. That line shouldn't exist. No state on my route had a Red River Crossing rest area. I showed the dispatch mechanic in Tulsa later that day. He looked at the log, scratched his head. Firmware glitch maybe? I'll reinstall. He plugged a diagnostic tablet into the port. The numbers scrolled fast, too fast for human eyes, until the screen froze. What's it say? I asked. He frowned. Last update, 2009. That's not possible. The system was installed in 2022. He unplugged, coughed like he'd swallowed something dry. You ever buy this truck used? No, company lease. He didn't look at me when he said, maybe the box remembers a different driver. I left the shop with that line chasing me down every mile. That night, I parked early, nose out near a line of sleeping reefers. My ELD stayed disconnected, but I couldn't resist watching the tablet screen as I ate. The display should have been dead. Instead, faint text began to crawl across it as if typed from the inside. Red River Crossing. ETA 0037. The reflection of my face looked pale in the glass. The clock on the dash read 11:23 p.m. I shut the laptop, stuffed it under the bunk, and stepped outside to breathe. The night was cool, the air metallic. Somewhere a truck engine coughed itself awake. When I got back in, the dash lights had dimmed to amber like someone had turned the voltage down. The ELD screen was black, but it whispered a sound. Not static, not hum. More like breathing through metal. I pulled the fuse for the whole unit. The sound stopped. But an hour later, when I woke from a shallow half-sleep, the sound was back. Louder, closer, synced perfectly with my heartbeat. That's when I realized it wasn't coming from the device. It was coming from the speakers. I flicked the radio power off. The breathing continued. Red River Crossing, I said out loud. What do you want? The breathing paused. Then one word came through, low and wet like someone talking underwater. Return. The clock jumped forward 1 hour on its own. 12:37 a.m. I looked out the windshield. Headlights flickered once down the empty road, then vanished before I could focus. The GPS came alive for 1 second, just long enough to show my rig's blue arrow moving north again, with nobody touching the wheel. By the time the sun came up, I'd convinced myself the breathing was in my head, a mix of exhaustion and diesel hum. Truckers hear plenty of ghosts when the caffeine runs out. Still, I couldn't shake that name. Red River Crossing. I tried searching it when I stopped for breakfast. Nothing. No rest area, no dot record, not even a local landmark. Just the real Red River line that divides Texas and Oklahoma. Miles off my route. I called dispatch again. Hey, check my logs for last night. What's it show? The operator paused, keys clattering. Nothing after 22 looks clean. No entry around 037? Zero. You probably cleared the cache when you pulled the fuse. I thanked her, but the moment I hung up, my phone vibrated with a message. No number, just a timestamp. 37, Red River Crossing, arrived. The letters crawled slow like they were typed live. I watched it delete itself letter by letter until the screen went blank. That afternoon I rolled through Oklahoma City. Traffic, construction, all the normal chaos that's supposed to make you feel human again. But every signpost looked slightly wrong. Mile markers bent, exit numbers skipping, and once clear as anything, a green board that read Red River Crossing. To me, I blinked. Looked again. Gone, just flat highway. By dusk, a storm was building, the kind with a yellow sky and air that tastes like copper. I figured I'd park before it hit. My route showed a small turnout 10 miles ahead. I hadn't realized that stretch ran parallel to the Red River until I saw the water glint between the trees. I pulled in. One other rig sat at the far end, white cab, lights off. My ELD was still disconnected, but the display lit anyway. Status on duty, Red River Crossing. I sat perfectly still, watching the text flicker like Morse code. Wind hit the trailer hard. The trees bent low, their branches scraping metal. I grabbed the mag light, opened the door. The air outside was thick and humming like the power grid had moved into the sky. When I aimed the light toward the riverbank, the beam caught something reflective, a sign half buried in mud. Red River Crossing Rest Area, closed since 2009. The letters were bleached, but the year burned clear. I stepped closer. The ground sank under my boots. Every sound was muffled, even the wind. A concrete slab jutted out of the soil ahead. Foundation of a restroom building, maybe long gone. And there, half covered in dirt, was a crushed black box with a shattered screen. I brushed the mud off with my glove. It was an ELD unit, same model as mine. When I touched the side port, the screen blinked to life for a second. Numbers flickered. Log entries, all from June 2009. The last one read, Driver T. Reeves, engine stopped, or 37 a.m., my heart hammered. That was my name. Then another sound came, faint but real. Air brakes releasing. I turned. The second rig down the lot had its clearance lights glowing now, warm and steady. I walked toward it, mag light shaking in my hand. Same company logo, same model. Even the same dent in the rear bumper. The driver door creaked open. Someone climbed down slow, or maybe climbed out. The light hit his face just enough for me to see what shouldn't be possible. It was me. Older maybe, skin grayed, eyes dull, but the same jacket, same scar above the eyebrow. He looked at me like a man watching a movie he already knew the ending to. "You're late," he said. His voice sounded wet, like it came from under the river. I stumbled back. "What is this?" "You stopped keeping logs." He nodded toward my cab. "So it kept one for you." The wind rose sharp enough to sting. My headlights flicked on by themselves, flooding the lot. The other me walked backward toward the water, leaving no prints. "Stay off the river," he said. "It's not for crossing anymore." Then he was gone. No splash, no sound, just rain starting to fall. I bolted back into my truck. The ELD screen was black again except for one final entry. Red River Crossing, engine off 10:37 a.m. I yanked the plug, grabbed the fuse, killed the power, everything. Still, the engine refused to start for a full minute. When it did, the clock jumped to 0:37 exactly. I drove blind through that storm until the GPS found a real exit. Behind me, lightning flashed over the river, painting the world in white for half a heartbeat. In that flash, reflected on the wet road, I swore I saw another rig running parallel to mine. No headlights, no driver, just motion.
I rolled 200 miles before the rain finally gave up. By dawn, my hands hurt from gripping the wheel too long. The road shimmered with morning mist, and the ELD lay dead beside me, its cracked screen reflecting the pale light like an eye that refused to close. When I pulled into a way station outside Wichita Falls, The officer on duty stepped out with a coffee in one hand and the kind of stare that said he'd already seen too much for one shift. "Morning, driver," he said. "You've been off route for a while." I tried to explain. "My logs, they're wrong. They keep showing miles I didn't drive. I found another unit, same ID, buried by the Red River. Same name, same entries." He blinked slowly. "You said Red River Crossing?" "Yeah, the closed rest area." He looked past me toward the highway, jaw tightening. "That place doesn't exist anymore. Flood took it in '09. Whole site condemned." "I know," I said, "but it's still logging me there." He frowned and tapped his tablet. "Let's run your VIN." The terminal beeped, processed, then froze. His brow furrowed. "System says this vehicle was decommissioned in 2009. Salvage title." "That's not possible," I snapped. "I picked it up from Fleet in Amarillo last year." He showed me the screen anyway. Bold print, black letters. Unit number 1909. Total loss/incident. Red River Crossing, June 12, 2009. Driver. Thomas Reeves. My own name looked wrong in that digital font. Like it had been waiting for me. He cleared his throat. "You mind if I call your company?" "Go ahead." We stood in the sunlight while he spoke to someone on dispatch. I could only hear his half of the conversation. "Yeah, Reeves, Thomas, says he's running Unit 1909. Pause. "No, ma'am. He's standing right here." Another pause. His eyes flicked toward me. "I understand. Thank you." He ended the call and handed my paperwork back, palms slightly shaking. "What did they say?" They said they don't have a driver by that name anymore." My throat tightened. "What do you mean, anymore?" He took a careful breath. "They said your contract was terminated in 2009, after an accident at Red River Crossing." I laughed once, short and hollow. "You think I'm a ghost? I've been driving 15 years straight, officer." He didn't answer, just glanced at the ELD on my seat. The unit had powered itself back on, the display glowing soft blue. He leaned in. "That's supposed to be plugged in?" "No," the screen flickered once, then displayed a single entry. Final log, 0:37 a.m. Engine stopped. Location: Red River Crossing. The air felt heavy, like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. "You see that?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Yeah. But, driver, that line's already on record. I pulled your historical log from DOT archives last month for training. Same timestamp, same coordinates. That's the report from the wreck." He stepped back a little. "You should get that thing checked out." When I looked down again, the ELD screen was blank. No power light, no hum, just a faint smell of burnt plastic. The officer waved me off with a nervous smile that didn't make it past his lips. "Drive safe, Mr. Reeves." I drove all the way to Denver without stopping. The truck ran smoother than it had in weeks. Too smooth. Like the engine was relieved I'd stopped asking questions. At a diner near the depot, I sat at the counter with a coffee gone cold and opened the dashcam files. The night before, I turned the camera toward the windshield just to see what it might catch. File name: Recrossing.mp4 timestamp 00:37:06. The video showed rain sheeting over the glass, lightning flashing across the horizon. Then, for 3 seconds, another truck appeared beside mine. Same color, same cab, running parallel on a strip of water where no road should have been. The reflection of its driver was clear this time. Me. But the version of me in that cab wasn't breathing. The file ended in static that faded into a voice, distorted but familiar. "Red River Crossing route complete." I deleted the file. It reappeared 30 seconds later. That was the last night I used digital logs. I switched to paper. Old school, messy, human. Every day I write the date, the miles, the weather. Every night I leave a blank space at 00:37. Not for what happened, but for whatever still runs that road when the hour comes. Because sometimes, when I park too close to the river and the air goes still, I can hear 2 engines idling in the distance. One mine, one not. Perfectly in sync, and when I check the ELD under the seat, even though it's cracked and dead, the screen faintly glows one line across the dark. Driver, Thomas Reeves. Engine running. 0:37 a.m. They say every load has its own personality. Some pull smooth, some fight you the whole way. You learn to feel the difference through the wheel, through the way the trailer breathes behind you. But sometimes the weight you feel isn't from what's inside. It's from something else riding along. It started on a Thursday run out of Kansas City. Routine haul. Picked up at a closed distribution lot that had recently changed owners. No signage yet, just a cracked gate. One guard in a yellow vest who looked half asleep. "Dock 4, he said, waving me through. "Trailers ready, sealed and signed." Everything about the place felt temporary. Floodlights buzzing like insects, stacks of pallets leaning like drunk soldiers. Concrete still slick from an earlier rain. I backed in, felt the kingpin lock clean, checked my pressure, ran lights. Everything checked out. The manifest said machinery parts, 38,000 pounds. Only when I pulled out onto the highway, the engine strained harder than it should have. Like I was hauling twice that. My gauges were fine. Tires looked good. But I could feel the drag. The kind that sits in your chest more than the chassis. By midnight, I'd hit open interstate. Long, flat blacktop. No wind, no rain, no reason for the pull. Still, my RPMs sat higher than they should. Like I was climbing an invisible hill. Every trucker knows that rhythm between man and machine, the subtle give and take that tells you when something's off. And this felt off in a way I couldn't name. I called dispatch. "Hey, can you confirm this load weight?" The operator clicked through files. 38,000 even. "Why? Feels heavier. Like 60 easy." She laughed. "You trying to upsell your miles again? Just double check it." "Roger that." I hung up, but unease crawled higher up my spine. The mirrors were dark except for my clearance lights and the long white stripe of the trailer side. Every few minutes, I caught something weird. The faint shimmer of red reflecting back from inside the trailer vents, like there was light inside. At the next rest stop, I pulled over, grabbed my flashlight, and circled around. Seal intact, padlock cold to the touch. No sound inside, not even cargo shift. But when I laid my palm against the aluminum wall, it was vibrating. Not from the reefer, not from wind. A deep, steady pulse, like a heartbeat buried under metal. I stepped back fast. The night was dead quiet. Somewhere out in the grass, a generator hummed. Lonely. I checked the manifest again. Same pickup ID, same paperwork, but no company name. Just a barcode stamped across the shipper line, half smudged. Back in the cab, I logged the stop, set my GPS to Denver, and eased back onto the highway. The truck moved slower than before, like it hated to leave that lot behind. An hour later, dispatch called me back. "Tom, you said you picked up from which warehouse again?" "Dock 4, off Route 67, west side." Static filled the line. Then, "That facility's been closed for months. We don't even have them in our active vendor list." I gripped the wheel tighter. "I just signed the manifest. Guard at the gate." "There's no guard," she said. "There's not even power there." The line went dead. I checked my dash clock. 12:37 a.m. The same cursed timestamp as every bad thing lately. Something in the trailer shifted. Just one dull thump, heavy enough to rock the rig. I watched the mirrors, nothing visible, but the shadow under the trailer looked wrong. Denser, thicker, like the darkness itself had gained weight. I eased the rig onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking in the empty night. The world felt hollow except for the hum of the engine and my heartbeat doubling it. I told myself it was just settling cargo, maybe a loose strap, maybe air pressure in the suspension. I told myself that until the next sound came. 3 slow knocks from inside the trailer. Not random, not mechanical, deliberate. Knock, knock, knock. Then silence so clean it hurt to breathe. I sat there until the hazards burned themselves into my vision. Then I put the truck in gear and drove. Faster than I should have. Every few minutes, the trailer leaned just slightly, like something inside was pacing. I drove until sunrise, and the trailer never lightened. Every curve, every hill, the weight stayed pressed against me like it had a hand on my back. My fuel gauge was dropping faster than math allowed. Either I was hauling a secret or gravity had decided to pick a fight. Around 7 a.m., I reached the way station outside Salina. A line of rigs idled in front of me, orange vests, clipboards, the usual DOT shuffle. When my turn came, the digital board flashed overweight, 88,000 lb. 88. That wasn't just a miscount, that was a felony ticket. The officer motioned me over with 2 fingers. You hauling lead bricks, driver? Manifest says 38. He smirked. Then your paperwork's lying. He told me to break the seal and open her up. My stomach turned, but I climbed down anyway. The padlock popped easy, too easy. I swung the doors wide, expecting, I don't know what, empty. 45 feet of air. The sunlight ran clean from end to end. Not a strap, not a pallet mark. Nothing. I looked back at him. See? No load. He frowned at the screen on his tablet. Scale says otherwise. How can that be? He walked around, thumped the tires, checked the suspension. Springs are compressed like you're maxed out. But if the trailer's empty, he trailed off and stared into the box like maybe the air itself owed him an explanation. Stay put, he said, and radioed his supervisor. While I waited, the wind picked up. A low hum came from inside the trailer, faint but steady, like steel cables tightening. My rearview mirrors started to vibrate. The officer turned back. You hearing that? Before I could answer, the hum stopped. He climbed inside, boots echoing. Weird resonance, he muttered. Like, the word cut off. His flashlight dropped, rolling toward me. The beam swung wild and landed on something behind him. A faint shimmer in the air, like heat above asphalt. He backed out quick, pale. Driver, seal it up. Now. What did you? Seal it. I slammed the doors. The metal groaned under my hands. He didn't write a ticket. Didn't even log my plate. Just waved me off. Get that thing to your yard. Empty it under supervision. And don't stop. I didn't argue. By the time I hit the highway again, the dashboard shook like the rig had picked up turbulence. The steering wheel felt hot. I kept glancing at the mirrors, half expecting to see the doors flex. Dispatch called 20 minutes later. Hey Tom, DOT flagged your unit as overweight but no citation filed. What happened? Nothing, I said. Load's gone. Gone. Trailer's empty. Scale says it's not. The line went quiet for too long. Then, which trailer ID? 4397. You sure? Positive. She exhaled slow. Tom, that trailer was scrapped last year. Frame cracked. We sold it for parts. I stared at the mirror. The number 4397 was stenciled right there in white paint, clean as a new tattoo. You're saying I'm hauling a ghost trailer? I asked. No, she said carefully. I'm saying whatever you're hooked to isn't ours. That's when the trailer shifted again. Not from wind, not from drag, but like something inside had moved closer. The glass in the back window of my cab vibrated. A faint dent pushed outward from the inside of the trailer door, just once. Enough to leave a print the size of a man's palm. I didn't look back again until I hit Topeka. When I stopped for fuel, the lot was empty. A stray dog circled my tires, sniffed the air, then whimpered and ran off. I walked to the back. The doors looked normal, but the padlock was missing. Just gone. I swung the doors open. Empty again. But this time the floor was damp, like condensation had been building. I stepped inside. The air felt thick, heavy enough to make my ears ring. I took one more step and froze. There were prints on the aluminum floor, long, narrow, human. A set walked straight toward the nose of the trailer and stopped, as if whoever made them had stepped through the wall itself. I backed out, heart hammering, shut the doors and drove. I didn't check the mirrors once. When I parked that night at a truck stop near Denver, I unhooked the trailer, left it sitting in a corner slot under the floodlights, just like I'd leave a bad dream behind. As I walked away, I heard the metal creak, slow, rhythmic, like breath drawn through steel lungs. By dawn, the trailer was gone. Dispatch claimed there was no record of any trailer being dropped. DOT logs showed no ticket, no overweight citation, no stop. But my odometer said I'd burned enough diesel for an 88,000-pound haul. I deadheaded back to Kansas City the next day. No trailer, no proof. Just a fuel slip showing I'd burned through nearly 2 full tanks on an empty run. Dispatch didn't believe a word. "You left a trailer worth 20 grand sitting at a truck stop?" the safety manager barked. "Send the coordinates." "I can't. It's not there anymore." "Then you better start remembering where you think it went." They froze my route pay until I could explain the mileage. That's the thing about trucking. Numbers talk louder than people. By evening, guilt got the better of me. I went back through my logs, hoping maybe I typed something wrong. Buried in the system was one entry I hadn't made. Delivery complete, 3:17 a.m., Route 67 Depot. I hadn't been anywhere near Route 67 since the pickup. I checked the map anyway. The old warehouse, the one that was supposed to be closed, was still there, a gray smudge on satellite view. I told myself I'd just drive by, take a picture for proof, and be done. The gate was open this time. No guard, no lights. The air smelled of burnt rubber and wet metal. I rolled in slow, headlights sweeping over loading bays coated in dust. Dock 4 stood wide open. The trailer was there. My trailer. No padlock, doors yawning. A shape hung in the middle of the bay. Not cargo, not machinery, just a pallet draped in plastic. I climbed down, flashlight trembling in my grip. The beam caught movement under the wrap. Something shifting slow, like a person breathing in sleep. The manifest lay taped to the wall. Different handwriting now. Different ink. Consignee, Red River Freight. Weight, 88,000 pound. Driver, Thomas Reeves. That name again. My voice cracked when I said it out loud. "What do you want from me?" A sound came from inside the trailer. Low, steady, like chains sliding across metal. The air thickened until my flashlight dimmed to amber. Then, a whisper from the darkness. "Finish the run." Every instinct screamed to run, but I stepped forward instead. One hand on the wall for balance. The temperature dropped so fast my breath fogged. On the floor, the same prints I'd seen before appeared. Wet, deliberate. Leading from the empty pallet toward me. They stopped at my boots. The next second, the trailer shifted. Air brakes hissed, though I hadn't touched the lines. The dock lights outside flickered to life. The truck's engine started itself. I backed out fast, stumbling down the ramp. The rig sat there idling, doors still open, headlights aimed at the highway beyond the fence. Then the CB crackled. My own voice, steady and calm, came through the speaker. "Load secure. Westbound departure. 3:17 a.m. I froze. The dash clock said 3:17. The engine revved once, and the truck rolled forward without me. Straight out of the lot, down the access road, and onto the highway, lights fading into the distance. When I reported it stolen, the state troopers found nothing. No tire tracks, no entry logs, no video. They told me maybe I dreamed it. But 2 nights later, dispatch called. "Tom," the voice said slowly, "we just got a delivery confirmation from a warehouse in Amarillo. Trailer 4,397. Weight logged at 88,000. Signed by a driver named Thomas Reeves." I didn't answer. I quit a week later, sold my gear, cut my CDL, and moved inland where I couldn't hear diesel echo off the plains. Still, sometimes around 3 a.m., my phone vibrates with a notification I can't block. Load delivered Route 67 to 88,000 pounds. Signed by T. Reeves. No sender. No timestamp. Just that. And once, when a storm rolled through last winter, I heard a horn out on the empty highway behind my house. A single long blast that sounded like a thank you. The kind drivers give each other when the road's been too long. I looked out the window and saw nothing but rain. But the air smelled of diesel and cold aluminum. When a trailer you've dropped finds its own way home, don't ask what it was carrying. Ask what it finally unloaded. Every driver hauls something invisible once. The lucky ones just don't look in the mirrors long enough to see it keeping pace. The median on I-70 isn't much to look at. Just scrub grass and concrete dividers running forever between eastbound and westbound. But when you drive nights long enough, even a strip of weeds starts feeling alive. I've been running Ohio to Colorado for years, same route, same hours. Most nights it's just trucks and stars, the kind of loneliness that hums like a low engine tone. Then, about 6 months ago, I saw him. It was 2 a.m. somewhere west of St. Louis. A drizzle made the pavement shine like oil. My high beams caught a man standing in the median, both feet planted on the yellow line, motionless. He wore a dark jacket, hood up, no flashlight, no car in sight, just standing there, facing traffic. I eased off the accelerator, expecting him to move or wave. He didn't. As my rig passed, his head turned slowly to follow. In the mirror, he stayed perfectly centered, like the road itself revolved around him. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe a stranded motorist, maybe a highway worker caught between exits. But the next night, around the same hour, I saw him again, same stance, same spot. Only this time, I was running westbound on the opposite side. He was still facing me. Truckers trade stories to stay awake, and I told mine at a diner outside Kansas City. One driver laughed. "Median man. Everybody's seen him once." Another shook his head. "I saw that fool in '97. Thought he was real till I stopped. He wasn't." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Walked right through fog and disappeared. Left footprints halfway across the asphalt. Then none." We all chuckled the way people do when they don't want to believe what they just heard. But the laughter sat heavy in my gut. That night, I made sure to pass that stretch with both dash cams rolling forward and rear. Rain again. Empty highway. And then there he was. Same distance. Same posture. As the headlights reached him, his outline flickered like bad video. For half a second, the reflection on his jacket glowed white. Not from my lights, but from something behind him. Then gone. The footage froze for exactly 1 frame. A smear of light where a face should have been, and skipped ahead 3 seconds like time itself refused to record what I'd seen. The next morning, I checked my logs. GPS showed a slowdown to 45 miles per hour near mile 223, just like the night before. But the location tag was missing. Blank field. No coordinates. I called dispatch. "Signal drop," they said. "Storm interference." Only it wasn't storming. Not there, not then. I zoomed in on the route tracker, and a thin gray line appeared connecting two dots. One labeled start, the other end, and nothing between. 50 miles erased. That afternoon I talked to an old friend, Ray, the same tech guy who'd helped me with the CB incident months back. He listened, then said, "Median man's not on the map. He's on the data." What's that supposed to mean? Somewhere, a sensor keeps pinging the same human signature every night. Could be a glitch, could be... He trailed off. "Just drive daylight for a while. Okay?" I tried. But freight doesn't care about daylight. By the next week, I was back on the night shift. And there he was again, this time closer, halfway between lanes. As I approached, he raised one hand slowly, palm forward, like a warning. When I passed, my entire cab lighting flickered, and the radio spat a burst of static shaped almost like a voice saying, "Asterisk, stop counting. Asterisk." I checked my mirrors, empty. Then, in the reflection of my own windshield, I saw him standing on the yellow line again, perfectly still, as if he'd never moved. 2 nights later, I made the worst mistake a driver can make. I stopped. The sky was clear that night, stars sharp as glass, the road dry and humming beneath me. I was eastbound now, trying to convince myself I'd imagined the whole thing. But somewhere past mile marker 223, my headlights brushed a dark shape ahead. He was there again. Same posture. Both feet in the grass strip, hands at his sides, facing me. My chest tightened. This time, I eased onto the shoulder. Hazards on. Engine idling. I stepped down, boots crunching gravel. "Hey!" I shouted. "You need help." The wind carried my voice halfway across the lanes before swallowing it. He didn't move, didn't even turn his head. Up close, the figure looked solid. Not smoke, not shadow. A man in a highway maintenance coat. Orange reflective stripes, faded but still catching light. The hood covered most of his face. "Buddy, this ain't safe," I called out again. "You're gonna get clipped." Nothing. I walked closer until I could see the wet shine of the grass at his feet. The smell of asphalt hung heavy, mixed with something older. Rust, maybe. That's when my flashlight beam slid past his shoulder and hit another set of boot prints behind him. Fresh, deep, like someone had been pacing that same strip of ground over and over for years. I knelt down. The soil was pressed so flat it looked baked. Tire marks overlapped the footprints, hundreds of them, faint outlines like echoes. Same model as my own. I turned back toward the figure and froze. He wasn't facing the highway anymore. He was facing me. The light hit his face just enough to make it worse. Pale skin, dry as paper, eyes open but filmed gray like fogged glass. His mouth moved once, no sound. Then a whisper came from the radio in my truck behind me. "Back on the road, Tom." My name. I stumbled backward, tripping on the curb, heart punching through my ribs. The hazard lights on my rig were strobing faster than I'd left them. Blink, blink, blink. Too fast for the setting. The figure tilted his head, a motion too smooth to be human, then lifted one hand and pointed. Not at me, but at the opposite lane. Through the dark, headlights bloomed. A semi barreled past, horn blaring, air buffeting so hard I lost balance and hit the ground. When I looked up, the median was empty. Just the grass, the cracked concrete, and the smell of burnt rubber. I scrambled into the cab, slammed the door, and shoved the rig into gear. My pulse didn't settle for miles. The next morning, I stopped at a way station outside Columbia and told the DOT officer everything. I didn't care how it sounded. He listened quiet, chewing a toothpick, then said, "You mean you saw him again?" I blinked. "You know about this?" He nodded. "We get reports. Usually night drivers. Always mile 223. He pulled a folder from his desk drawer and flipped it open. Inside were printed photos, screenshots from dashcams, all the same. A man in the median, blurred but upright. Who is he? The officer tapped one picture. Used to be a road crew supervisor. Killed back in 2009 working that stretch. Driver swerved to avoid a wreck, crossed the median, took him out clean. Guy's name was... He squinted at the form. Larry Coates. The name hit me like cold water. Larry. The same name stitched on the jacket of the gas station clerk at exit 47. Coincidence, maybe, but coincidence doesn't make your radio talk back. I asked if they ever fixed the spot. He shook his head. Tried. Poured new asphalt. Paint won't stick. Every few months, someone calls in saying they saw him again. Anybody ever stop? I asked. Couple did. His tone darkened. One got clipped by a westbound rig. Another just vanished. Truck found idling at the shoulder, driver gone. Logbook showed he'd clocked out at 2:23 a.m. exactly. Same mile number. Same pattern. He leaned forward, voice low. If you're smart, you'll drive daylight till you stop seeing him. I nodded like I agreed. But by the time night fell, I was already back on I-70. I hit mile 223 at 2:23 a.m. on the dot. Couldn't help myself. The spot looked cleaner now, grass mowed, reflectors new. But as I passed, my headlights flickered once and the world dimmed like someone turned the voltage down. For half a second, I caught his reflection in the divider. Not a man anymore, just a smear of motion caught in both mirrors at once. The radio hissed again. Left lane. Always the left lane. I jerked the wheel before I even knew why. Just as a stalled car appeared in my path. Missed it by inches. When I looked back, the median was empty again. For a week, I tried to stay off that stretch. I ran southern routes, shorter hauls, daytime drops. Anything that kept me from seeing mile 223 again. But the road has its own gravity. Sooner or later, every driver loops back to where the silence started. Dispatch sent me east on a double-leg run, Denver to St. Louis. I didn't notice until I hit Topeka that the miles lined up perfectly. The final stretch would drop me right past that same median just after midnight. I almost pulled over and slept it off, but freight doesn't care about fear. And maybe some part of me needed to know. At 2:10 a.m., I crossed into Missouri. The interstate was empty. No taillights, no oncoming beams, just the yellow line glowing like it had learned to breathe. Fog hung low, hugging the dividers in strips. Mile 223 crept closer on the GPS. I flicked the dash cam on and kept one eye on the mirrors. Nothing, just blacktop and breath. Then the temperature dropped. The windows fogged from the outside. And there he was, standing dead center in the median. Same dark jacket, same tilt of the head. But this time he was closer, not 20 yards away, maybe 10. I eased off the throttle. You're not real, I whispered. But my voice sounded borrowed. The headlights reached him. He turned toward me, slow, deliberate, and raised one hand. Then the radio bled to life. Not static, not CB chatter. It was a recording. My own voice, strained, terrified. Back on the road, Tom. Stay left. I froze. That was from the last encounter, the night I stopped. The man's mouth moved in perfect sync with the words. The steering wheel jerked in my hands like someone else had taken over. The rig drifted left just as a sedan burst out of the fog ahead, stalled across my lane. Instinct kicked in. I swerved. The trailer yawed, tires screaming. Missed by a breath. The cab slammed back straight, and the world snapped silent again. When I looked back in the mirror, the sedan was gone. No wreck, no skid marks, nothing but damp asphalt. But the figure was still there, walking now, slow and steady down the median, keeping pace with my truck though I was doing 60. Each step matched the rhythm of my engine. I hit the brakes hard enough to rattle the gauges. The figure stopped too, mid-stride, frozen under the overhead lights. For one awful second, the whole highway flickered like bad film. The lanes doubled, then folded back together. When the world settled, he was standing in the middle of the eastbound lane, directly ahead. I should have swerved. I didn't. The rig passed through him. Cold filled the cab, sharp as ice water. The mirrors fogged white, then cleared. He was gone. The radio spat one last burst of static that almost formed a word. Asterisk. Delivered. Asterisk. I drove until dawn, hands locked on the wheel. The next afternoon, I stopped at a rest area outside Columbia. My phone buzzed with an email from Highway Patrol, a follow-up to the reports I'd filed. It contained one photo attachment and a short note. You asked for confirmation of any median fatalities on I-70, mile 223. Attached. Accident report, June 12, 2009. Victim, Larry Coates, road crew supervisor. Witness, Thomas Reeves, truck driver, deceased at scene. My stomach dropped. I hadn't been near that highway in 2009. I hadn't even started long-haul work until years later. But there, under witness, was my signature, shaky but mine. I checked the photo attached to the report. It was taken at dawn, fog still on the ground. A white semi idled on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking. In the median stood a single man facing the camera, jacket hood up. The timestamp at the corner read 2:23 a.m. My dashcam blinked a notification then. New file saved. Median under 23 MP4. I hadn't turned it on. The video played itself. Through the windshield, my truck rolled down an empty highway. A man stood in the median, hand raised. But the reflection in the windshield showed the driver's seat empty. Then, faintly from the speakers, "Stay left, Tom." The screen went black. I deleted the file. It reappeared 30 seconds later. Now I run daytime hauls only. I avoid Missouri altogether. Still, every few nights, my phone pings with an alert from the dashcam cloud I canceled months ago. Motion detected at mile 223. Sometimes it sends a thumbnail. Always the same. A lone figure in the median. Hand raised. Facing the camera. If the same man keeps warning you from the same mile, he's not saving you from the road. He's saving the road from you. Some ghosts don't chase drivers. They just wait for the next one who hasn't learned which lane belongs to the living. There's a stretch of Highway 24 in eastern Utah where the air itself feels hollow, like the world ran out of sound. No gas stations, no rest stops, no signs of life except the blinking red eye of a single radio tower that watches the plains like a lighthouse for the lost. I'd been hauling refrigeration units to Colorado that night. Clear weather, light cargo, easy run. But every driver knows, it's the easy nights that go wrong first. Around 1:40 a.m., the CB crackled to life. "Breaker 90, anyone copy?" The voice was faint, washed out like it was coming through water. I adjusted the dial. "Copy, this is Reeves on eastbound 24. You all right out there?" Nothing. Then again, same tone, closer this time. "Can't see the road? Need coordinates? Anyone near Tower 9? I checked my GPS. Tower 9 didn't ring a bell. But a red dot blinked on the map. An old relay station about 20 miles up. Marked, inactive. "Copy that," I said, though my throat was dry. "Stay put. I'll check it out." A smarter man would have ignored it. But in this line of work, leaving someone stranded in the dark isn't an option you can live with. The next 15 miles crawled by. The desert opened flat and colorless, like the moon under headlights. Then I saw it, the tower. 200 feet of rusted steel rising from nothing, its top light pulsing slow and tired. A single service shack sat beside it, door half hanging open. The radio hissed again. "You made good time, Tom." My name. I froze. My hand hovered over the mic. "I didn't give you my handle," I said. Static. Then, quieter. "Come inside. The power's out." The shack door creaked as I pushed it open. The air smelled of ozone and dust. The walls were lined with old broadcast equipment. Dials, switches, a cracked monitor still glowing faint green. A coffee mug sat on the desk, half full, the surface coated with dust. Whoever had been here hadn't been here recently. The radio unit in the corner flicked to life on its own. A distorted version of my voice played through it, the one I'd used 10 minutes ago. "Copy that. I'll check it out." I stepped back fast. "Who's on this frequency?" No reply. Outside, the tower lights slowed their pulse until the world between flashes felt like another dimension. Just black air and the faint metallic groan of the wind. Then the CB in my truck picked up again. "You found it." I ran back to the cab, slammed the door, and started the engine. The radio volume shot up on its own. "Don't go yet. We're still transmitting." The dashboard clock blinked 2:09 a.m., then flickered to 2:10, then back to 2:09. Looping. That's when I realized the tower's red light wasn't random. It flashed in perfect sync with the numbers. 2 blinks, pause. 2 blinks, pause. Almost like it was counting me. I put the rig in gear and rolled. Dust kicked up behind me, the kind that doesn't settle right, it just follows. Half a mile out, the CB came alive one more time. "You can't leave until you check in." The voice was louder now, and it wasn't one voice. It was a dozen layered together, men, women, static, all speaking my name. "Tom Reeves, you didn't check in." I reached for the power knob, but before I could turn it off, the entire cab went dark. Engine dead. Lights gone. In the mirror, the tower's red light still blinked, but now it was closer. Not 50 feet tall anymore. Not 200. It was standing in the middle of the highway like a thing that had unfolded from the ground itself. And at its base, I could see silhouettes, shapes of people standing still, looking up. The radio whispered again, clear now, almost kind. "All signals come home eventually." Then the tower light blinked once more, and everything went black. When I came to, it was daylight. My truck sat idling on the shoulder. The GPS showed I'd driven 147 miles past where I remembered stopping. No tower, no shack, just empty desert. The CB was fried, melted inside like it had been struck by lightning. I pulled the fuse box, replaced what I could, and rolled to the nearest way station. The officer there listened quiet as I told him. Then he nodded, slow. "Tower 9, he said. "That relay's been out since '89. Storm took it down, but drivers still hear it sometimes." I stared at him. "Hear what?" He smiled faintly, eyes tired. "Their own voices." 3 months passed before I dared to drive that route again. I told myself it was superstition, fatigue, weather, bad wiring. But every night, when I killed the lights in the sleeper berth, I could still hear it. That low hum that isn't quite a sound, more like the world breathing through static. Dispatch finally sent me west again. Same run, same lane, same silence stretching across the Utah flats. I told myself I wouldn't look for it, but I knew I would. Somewhere past midnight, the horizon flared red. Not bright, just enough to catch the corner of my eye. The tower was back. It shouldn't have been visible. That land was empty, scrub and rock for 100 miles. But there it was, pulsing in the distance, the same rhythm. 2 blinks, pause, 2 blinks. I gripped the wheel, jaw tight. Not again. The CB was off this time. Fuse gone, wires taped. But the auxiliary radio, the one built into the newer rig for weather alerts, lit up anyway. Breaker. Tower 9 responding. We read you. I slammed the power button. It didn't shut off. The voice came softer, clearer. You were supposed to check in, Tom. I didn't touch the mic. I didn't breathe. You left us transmitting. That line crawled into my bones. The phrasing was wrong. Us transmitting. Like there was more than one, or maybe like I'd become part of it. The road curved slightly, but I stayed straight. My headlights traced the power lines leading off into the desert, and halfway down the run, I spotted a shape off the shoulder. A semi, parked nose first into the dirt, engine off. No hazards, no driver. I slowed, heart in my throat. The trailer door hung open like a broken jaw. On the side of the cab, dust-coated but legible, was a company logo, Coronet Freight. Same carrier as mine. Same fleet number, even. I killed the engine and climbed down. The desert air was dead still. Not even a bug moved. The driver's door was unlocked. Inside, everything looked normal. Logbook on the dash, thermos in the holder, half-eaten sandwich on the console. And the CB mic still in its cradle, light green and glowing. I flipped the logbook open. The handwriting wasn't neat, but it was mine. Same pen, same looped R, same pressure. The last entry read, 2:09 a.m., arrived at Tower 9. Transmission confirmed. Signal holding steady. I stepped back fast. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. The mic clicked by itself. Reeves, you checked in after all. The radio volume rose, slow and steady, until every word pressed against the cab walls. You made good time. Stay on frequency. Don't turn the dial. The logbook pages started flipping, one by one. Even though there was no wind, dozens of entries filled themselves in scrawled versions of my handwriting, all with the same timestamp. 2:09 a.m. Outside, the red glow swelled, brighter than headlights, painting the dirt and the truck's chrome blood orange. I staggered back, shielding my eyes. The tower stood maybe half a mile out, humming like an old machine trying to remember what it was built for. At its base, I saw shapes. Tall, thin, dozens of them, lined up in silence. They weren't moving, not really. They just vibrated like bad reception. One stepped forward. Its outline flickered. A man in a reflective vest, face white, eyes hollowed out by light. His mouth opened, and my own voice came out. Check incomplete. I ran. The cab lights died as I climbed in. I turned the key, nothing. Then, faintly under the hood, came a high-pitched whine. The kind electronics make right before they blow. The dashboard clock blinked on. 2:09 a.m. and stayed there. The trailer lights began to flash in the same rhythm as the tower. 2 blinks, pause. 2 blinks, pause. I slammed the clutch, dropped into gear, and floored it. As I pulled back onto the highway, the red glow behind me shrank, but not because I was moving fast. It was sinking, like the earth itself was pulling it back down. The radio crackled one last time. Frequency lost. Transmission saved. Then silence. By sunrise, I hit a way station outside Green River. The officer ran my plates, looked at his screen, and frowned. Truck numbers registered to a Coronet Freight unit declared totaled in 2009, he said. I laughed, too tired to care. You're saying this thing's been dead 16 years? He didn't smile. Not just that, he said. The driver on that manifest, Thomas Reeves, missing. Declared deceased. He handed me a printout. There was my company photo. My name. My start date. My end date. June 14th, 2009. I looked back toward the desert. The horizon shimmered red, faint, but pulsing. 2 blinks. Pause. 2 blinks. A month later, I was back on the road. Not by choice, because the bills don't stop when nightmares do. I'd switched carriers, new company, new rig, new CB unit. I even used a fake name this time. Anything to leave that road and my own reflection behind. But some echoes don't care about paperwork. The first sign came out of Nevada. I was parked at a Love's, half asleep in the cab, when a kid from another rig knocked on my door. He was maybe 20, scared, holding his CB mic like it was burning his hand. "Sir," he said, "you're Reeves, right?" I froze. He shouldn't have known that name. "What makes you say that?" I asked. He swallowed. "Channel 9. Someone's calling for you. Keeps repeating your name." My stomach dropped. "I'm not who you think," I said, and started the engine. But curiosity is a cruel habit. I turned the CB on anyway. Static at first. Then, "Breaker 90. Tower 9 checking in. Reeves, you copy." My blood went cold. The voice was mine. Not just similar, exact. Tone, breath, inflection. Like a recording of my own soul. I turned it off, drove through the night, and told myself never to think about it again. But over the next few weeks, the stories spread. Drivers all across the Midwest started hearing the same thing. A male voice asking for Tower 9 clearance. Always at 2:09 a.m. Different routes, different states, same time, same words. On trucker forums, they called it the Reeves broadcast. Some said it was a ghost loop, a dead frequency stuck replaying its last message. Others said it was a government test using old emergency lines. But the smart ones, the ones who've lived too many lonely miles, didn't argue. They just turned their radios off before midnight. 3 weeks later, I caught it again. I was westbound on I-80, fog so thick it looked solid. I kept my CB off, my phone off, everything dark but the dash. Still, the signal came through the auxiliary even with the system disconnected. "Breaker. Tower 9 transmission repeating. Signal stable." Then silence. Then my voice again. Quieter. Strained. "Signal lost? Please confirm contact." And then a second voice. "Confirmed. Standing by." I knew that voice too. It was the DOT officer from Green River. The man who'd told me I was dead. The temperature inside the cab dropped fast. Frost crawled along the windshield from the corners inward. The GPS flashed an error, route lost. Signal restored to mile 90. ****. My stomach turned to ice. I hadn't been anywhere near Utah. Outside, the fog parted. And there it was. The tower. Perfectly intact, right on the shoulder. Its red light blinking that same rhythm, 2 blinks, pause, 2 blinks. And beneath it stood a crowd of people. All drivers. Dozens of them. They weren't moving. They were listening. Every one of them held a CB mic to their mouths. Cords snaking down into the dirt. The cables didn't end. They ran into the ground. The radio flared. "You made good time, Tom." I slammed the brakes, threw the rig in reverse, but the tower light pulsed brighter, washing the cab in blood red. "You checked in. Now transmit." The gauges spun out. Every dial maxed redline. The speakers screamed a noise halfway between static and breath. I yanked the door handle, stumbled out, and froze. The ground was covered in wires. Miles of them stretching away like veins. And each one connected to a mic half buried in the sand, still transmitting. I ran until the sound faded. When I finally stopped, the desert was quiet again. The tower was gone, but the light stayed behind my eyes, burned there like an afterimage. That morning, I rolled into a rest stop and saw a state trooper parked by the pumps. He was pale, shaking, clutching his own radio. "You hear it too?" he asked. "Hear what?" He looked at me like I just lied to God. "Channel 9, he said. "Every trucker in 100 miles got the same call." Voice said, Tower 9 complete. Reeves confirmed. Then silence. I didn't answer, just climbed back in the cab and started driving east. When I checked my dashcam later, the footage ended at exactly 2:09 a.m. The final frame was a shot of the highway stretching empty, except for one red light in the distance. Blink, pause, blink, and my voice over the audio. Tower 9 standing by. Copy that. I stopped hauling a month later, sold the rig. But sometimes, when I drive through static zones on the radio, it catches a fragment of that same signal. My own voice asking for coordinates I never reached. And on clear nights, truckers say they still see a single red light pulsing low on the horizon around mile 90. It never moves. It just waits for the next voice willing to answer. Never reply to a distress call that knows your name.